So today, folks, we have the beautiful Camille Havas, and she has electively come on at my last minute attempt to say, do you just want to go on Instagram Live and do this? And she openly said yes, and I already love her spirit enough for doing this. So without further ado, I'll give her a quick little introduction as to who she is, and then I will let her come in and tell her beautiful story the way that she will so eloquently do in her own way. So Camille, basically she wants to bring forth anybody and everyone connecting their wisdom to that being voiced to other people. And that's something that speaks really true to me. And it's at no surprise as to how I came across you and how our paths have met here. So she also does a lot of work around what is called art vivant, if I'm saying that correctly, which means you are with your body in front of people. So she does a lot of artwork in trying to present her messages in the way that connect your body to your soul. And I hope that I'm doing this in the slightest part of words and what your actual whole soul mission is here. I'm hoping I'm doing that justice. So I'm going to pass the ball over to you, Camille, to actually explain a bit of the background around what you do, but more importantly, why you do it and what led you to the path of everything that you share with the beautiful souls that you do.
So it's actually a long story because it all began, I discovered circus when I was 10 or something, and I really felt, circus with animals at that time. So I was like, there were like, I don't know, foxes coming into my hand, coming onto my shoulders. It was like very special environment. And years after that, I decided to study computer science for I don't know what reason, but this is what I did. And after 5 years spending in that environment with people, they literally had no bodies. They were like floating heads and just didn't want to meet any of their body needs. That was for them only a weakness, like, I have to feed. So they eat like whatever. And I had this circus environment in my head, the connection with animals, to meet the needs of animals and also ours. And also create magic, because circus is about illusion, is about making l'émerveillement, making wonder.
Oh, I love how you speak. I wish you could say this whole thing in French, but I just would not understand it. It just sounds so beautiful.
And so I worked a bit in computer science, but for me it was not my thing. I really felt that, stay seated inside for hours in a day, I could feel my soul go gray, literally, after like 1 hour, 1 year only. I felt this is really like, I shouldn't do this, I'm gonna die. So I stopped and began to do like whatever other stuff I could do, like photography, circus, being a teacher in computer science, and in trapeze also. So I was like literally doing anything I could do to get out of this computer science. Even if computer science is really nice because you can work, and in our environment also finding work is a reality I had to meet too.
Yeah.
But then when I did this, I was again close to my circus people, and I could see them, the way they know how to treat their body, the way they know how to deal with their own energy. When there is a problem, they know how to move with it and do something with it. So I continued this path and began to dig into somatic practice, like somatic dance, which is the goal of this is to begin to be more conscious about yourself through movement, using movement, you begin to be more conscious about what's happening in yourself. You can, for example, you do a very, very slow movement, and you can meet your impatience, or you can meet where you rush and why, and you can meet the way you avoid things, or the way you stay in the same place, or the way you always want new because you get bored. You meet you very literally and very easily. It's so simple technique.
Yes, and when we move our body as well, we it's a very, very direct connection, like because so many people are connected, I think, to the sense of what they can touch is real, versus if I was to say it was all in your mind, people like, well, I can't see that. But when you're met with resistance in your body, like you say, or you go, I feel tension, or I feel really free, it really allows this different connection, like you're saying, with body and soul, of like, wow, that's a bigger meaning than just resistance or friction or like bang. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's not esoteric at all. It's like, it's really concrete. Like everybody can feel something at some point. But the teacher can't predict anything. The teacher, she says, like, it's really difficult to tell because I don't know what people will get from me. Which is very true, because you get where you are, you get something, you get the next step. And so I was still digging to find where I could work, because I need to work somewhere. And I found this path through friends to become an artist. And what became very important to me was to do like live art or living out. I don't know how to translate this in French. I think the expression is very strong, because we say something as living art. We say you are performing, basically, which means you're using your body right now in front of people. It's not, because also I've been doing photography for years and I love photography, but there are lots of stuff. I think my presence is very strong, because also I receive something from the public, and I can say with many languages at once. Not only the visual that I can also use, but also my empathic kinesthesia can speak for me. And also I can also speak and play music, and I have many languages available at once.
And it's different with different audiences, right? Too, because you'd feed off different energy of what that particular audience will need, or what that particular environment is going to need. So there's an element of living art that can be planned, I can imagine, but then there's a part that would be the magic of when you just turn up, and that message that you're meant to deliver in that moment, which I'm sure is where all of the magic and the beauty happens.
Sure. Also, there is this interaction of the environment. That's also what's going in you this morning. And it's not about like hiding what's in you this morning to provide what's being weighted. It's like, okay, let's do like a big salad with what's in there, in the people, what's in me, and what's the purpose of what I have to taste this morning. So it's all, there's always a big salad and with everything. Which is,
are you the tomato or the lettuce? What are you?
Sorry?
I said, are you the tomato or the lettuce, or all of them at different times?
Exactly. And it's also about not hiding what's not supposed to be said, but what's there. It's like it has to be expressed as well.
What exactly is it that you perform?
This is how I came to art.
What art form exactly do you perform on stage? Because I know one of the things that we were talking about is your ability to connect to nature, and talking about the birch trees and all of that kind of photography. And I can see your face just lighting up when I talk about that. So when you're on stage, what is it exactly that you are performing to the audience? Are you able to clearly articulate that?
I had I had some opportunity in theater, which very surprised me because I didn't study theater at all.
Yeah.
But I think this thing is also a special theater project, which is very about improvisation. Mm-hmm. So I think this ability to get what's there and express what's in also mm-hmm. is why they picked me, I think. There must be a reason. But I've been really working on my circus side for years and also taking many dances workshop as well. Mm. And now I'm mixing this together as a new circus practice that I somehow name somatic circus because I'm taking what's the environment within me and do some, I don't know if it's still circus because there is still trapeze and there is still this game with gravity and there is what one could call a risk, but not really. Like sometime I fall or I'm not high, it's a very low trapeze. Yeah. Because I want to play with the floor also. Mm-hmm. Because I want to have my dancing body also to be present because it's really different bodies. I have my different bodies that can, be more flex and be more connected to the floor. And the circus body, the way I learned circus in years is very frontal, it's very strong, it's very like this or and so now I'm putting the energy of dance in my circus body and I really needed this low trapeze. So the kind of movement I develop with this practice is very listening practice because I'm put the rhythm of the wind and of the trees around me to move and I connect to the natural movement of the trapeze in nature, which is it's moving it's moved by the wind and I try to resonate at the same speed and I mean the trees and the colors and the wind have a very important place in the video I'm doing for this project. So this is a way of I'm not the only comedian on stage. In that project, the trees are playing with me in a way.
It sounds like you almost are resembling the qualities of the tree and that it has its structured roots in that grounded part of the practice, but then it also has like the flow of the leaves and the branches and that beautiful elegance that nature happens to, allow the elements to move through it, but then it's so rooted in the ground. And is it birch trees exactly that you're connecting to in this particular theatre performance that you're doing, or is that more so the passion with the skin of the tree of the birch? I really am curious about this birch tree and why you're so curious about it.
It's precisely this when you mention about the roots and the branches. Like currently, like this week, I've been working in studio on that project, which is very different because I have to like convoke the tree in me to remember what it felt to be a tree, and somehow like I have a coach and took me out of the trapeze. Okay, go on the floor, like go find the tree again. You forgot about the tree.
Yes.
And it's really this tension about the roots and the branches and how do a root moves because it moves very slowly, but it does. Yeah. And how do the branches move and to where? And the birch thing, it actually the film because there is a little short movie for this project and it was actually birch trees, but because there is many birches in Quebec where I live, but the birch is focused on another project, which is for now mainly a photography project, where I photography birches trunks, because if you look closely, you will look, it has really like skin colors. And
Wow.
I have other pictures that I made a few years ago in Japan. It was in very wet area, and the skin of the tree is so shiny that you really couldn't tell if it's a human or a tree. So this particular picture gave me this idea that I was always fascinated by the tree's skins, and now that I look very closely at bird skins, like the colors are so like us, and there are so many colors and so many textures, and when there is too much wind, the trees is really always like super crooked, and it's really easy for us to say, oh, it's beautiful, look how it's crooked. And when we see a human that has been like terrassed by life, and it's so crooked by life, by the trauma he met or the events, we say, oh, this one is weird. So how come we can so easily get interested in crooked trees but not in crooked humans? So this is the project about showing. Also, there are the scars, there are the age, there are the lichen. I don't know how to say. You know, like, and every tree skin is so different, and you can, like, I don't know if you're really paying attention to this, but it's really fascinating.
I will more so now. I'm a lover of the water, and I love nature in general, and just how it reflects all of the qualities that I wish to embody. And when I'm feeling a sense of needing more peace or grounding or calmness or plainness, it's like I play with the different elements that I'm needing and going directly to the source. Like for you talking about trees there, and like that just touched my soul when you said we look at nature and it can be crooked and imperfect, and we see so much beauty in it. And then we think of a human, like you said, that has gone through all of these traumas, all of these hurts, and they, you know, people might be deformed, they might have scars, battle wounds, inside or out, and we get so judgmental. And this is the whole reason as to why I do things exactly like this podcast, and it's shining light onto the rawness of beauty and seeing the beauty in absolutely everybody and everything. And I know not every situation is, you know, pretty to look at, but I think if we choose to see it with love or compassion or understanding, then like the way that I view you and someone else to view you through my eyes, it's much easier to see beauty in someone else when, you know, we've had this conversation. I've really delved into like wanting to hear your story. So I appreciate that analogy. And I love that I love that you're into a whole heap of different things to really connect you back to the inner you. So it's like you're doing normal human things like dance, movement, talking about trees, but it all comes back to the human and really coming back to like, who am I at my core? And the thing about nature is that it shows its essence. It grows even when it's like tipped over, knocked over, dying. It's still growing green out of it. It's like, how does it even do that? So I think that's a really cool, that's such a cool thing that you do, Camille. You're a beautiful soul. That's so amazing. How did you actually, like, what did you used to do when you were younger? Have you always been connected to this sense of nature, or has that been like a developed thing as you went through different stages of your life or met different people? Tell me about that.
It struck me. When I was younger, I used to ride bicycle with my father a lot, but you know, I didn't like this nature I was in. It's a really beautiful country. I was like south of France. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it because the trees are not generous out there. You know, it's so dry. It's so c'est piquant. I don't know how to say.
Yeah.
And it's not generous. And one day I went to Brittany in France also, which is very humid, and I was really in love with all the moss and the green, and so I was like, oh, okay, there is something very interesting here, but didn't have chance to connect. And when I came to live in Canada for studies for computer science, it was not for nature at all. And when I came here and I did my first camping 4 days with friends, it was such an encounter. I was crazy about that moment, and I just couldn't wait. And we were actually so excited, all of us, that we did exactly the same thing like the week after. We went to the same place, the same days, and we bought the same thing in the supermarket. And from that moment, I began to hike more and more with friends. At the beginning, it was for the performance. And the more I repeatedly experienced this, the more I could see trees and the trunks. And I was doing photography for years already. And so I had this tool to help me see, because the camera can really help you see. Because I don't know if people that don't do photography know that, but when you take a picture, you will remember it for years. And when you see the picture, you will exactly know when you take it and why and where. So the photography really helped me to see that. And the more I dig in this hiking process, the more I needed to explore, and to the point where now I do exploration hiking, which means I'm really out of grades, and I do this with a boyfriend who studied in geology and he's more experienced mountaineer guy. So we go literally look at the map and say like, this place is interesting because it has mountains all around, and we go to that place and we manage somehow to go up the hill and waiting. We can't wait for the end of the forest, the limit of the trees, because it's so difficult to walk in a real forest. Like people don't know that.
Yeah.
It's really because there are trunks everywhere and moss, and you have your bag on your back and you have everything to survive. And doing this, you learn the real weight of surviving for human. Like, it's so easy in our life to just go on the supermarket, but when you have to prepare your food for days to prepare this moment of the hike, and when you have to carry it and know what it's like to really walk in a nature that wasn't transformed to be adapted to human needs. It's so much more energy that there's nothing else that just being there and surviving. And so interesting how it transforms your relationship to landscape.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what the really amazing thing about hiking and camping and all of that stuff, even though we're bigger bodied humans that can't like navigate all of the bushes and the trees as eloquently probably as the animals and the foxes that you're talking about earlier with circus, but is that we remember how abundant nature is and how it has really everything that we need. And when we take a day, a couple of hours, or a couple of days, if we're fortunate enough to have that amount of time, we realize just how much abundance we can feel within, even though we don't have as much food, or we don't have all of the luxuries and necessities that we have from home. For me, it just really reminds me of like, wow, I'm living a really luxurious life, like just having access to a toilet, having access to a shower. It really, I don't know if it does the same for you, it just makes you appreciate what you have in that moment, right?
You really realize that it's not normal, it's really luxury, and we shouldn't forget about it, because we still want even more. It seems super evident what I'm saying, but it's not. It's so much more when you really like realize in your body where the abundance is. And also it reminds me when 1 year I was working in Japan from Tokyo to Kyoto. It was like 500 kilometers, and it was a month of walk alone. And it was my first experience of traveling alone away, and I didn't speak Japanese, so it was really a challenging experience. And when I was in forest, I was full. I needed nothing. Everything was there. And as soon as I entered the city, I had needs. I wanted maybe speak with friends, or drink alcohol, or maybe a cigarette, or chat on internet, and I really didn't know what I needed. I just needed something. And it was super clear that it wasn't connected to something special. I wasn't thinking about some special friends. I was just
consuming.
And I really felt it was connected to cities, because I was cut from something. Because in nature, it's so beautiful. You're really stimulated out there. There are many smells, many beautiful things to look at, many greens, the air is speaking to you.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to your senses, you're in conversation. And this is the book of David Abraham. He speaks a lot about that. But it's so nourishing. It's really conversation, permanent conversation with your body and with the environment, which is not always agréable, which is not always nice, because something it's cold and it's raining, but there is something happening.
Yeah.
And in our cities, the sounds, they can be really aggressive, and also the smells, car smells and everything.
Yeah.
So that we are very cut from our sensation. And the city is a blessing, because it's allows us to survive. Because seriously, no one here is able to survive in the forest. We just forgot about that. But also, we have to be conscious about what it does to our senses. And this is also, I believe, a really strong reason where we feel all those needs. It can lead to really dependence, but in small scale, it just needs. We have 2 sugar, cafe, or computer, anything. It manifests in many ways. But I feel this is really the expression of cutting ourselves from these senses.
You know what, when you speak, it makes me think of a really clear and concise way of summing it up. When we're in nature, we know that we're enough exactly as we are, because everything around us is showing that it has everything that it needs. But what you said struck me before, when you said, I went into the city and I didn't know what I needed, so you just started consuming. We go into almost this scarcity way of being, of like either fear of missing out, or just falling into the pattern of everyone else is doing it, so I guess I better do it too. And it's like we all of a sudden feel like lost, and we're lacking abundance in a lot of ways. If we don't have that awareness to go, hey, this isn't what I need, I can step into this and still be abundant. You can really get drawn with different crowds, or drawn with the wind. Whereas, the practices that you do, like the somatic dancing and the theater, and connecting to the trees, probably makes you, really able to engage when you step into a city, to go, hey, this is beautiful as well. Like this reminds me of nature, and not getting so overwhelmed, which I know a lot of people can, once they've spent a lot of time in nature, or if they've done silent retreats or have a spiritual practice, and then they come back to the real world and they can't function. So I think, having a good balance of both is really healthy if you are to engage in worldly stuff, as most of us do.
It's actually a real challenge for me too, but this somatic practice helped me a lot to understand what's going on and what I can deal with or not. But I can totally relate to the overwhelming presence of cities. There's so many information. I mean, this is really a thing, but this is not something I wish to connect so strongly with forest that I can't function anymore in life,
Yeah.
That I'm not just a soul, I'm also a body which has to connect and function in our epoch in our year.
Society.
But also what it brings to me, this way of connecting with trees, it helped me to learn again how to learn by observation, which is the natural way of learning for children. But we somehow forget about that, and we are used to, especially for computer scientists, we know we learn to analyze, and we need something explained, and we need to come to know all the limits already, even before we try something. And this is through dance and art that I could unlearn that pattern, because if you already know all the limits before starting something, you will stay inside the limits. You will never explore for yourself. And now in Canada, I'm somehow connected to some native people, and they really emphasize this way of learning, which is very important for them. Learning by observation, for example, and I really believe we need them. We need them to learn us how can we just live, vivre ensemble, live together, and live together. I'm not only speaking about humans.
Absolutely. Like, it's this unison of realizing that we're all individual and we have different gifts that we're meant to be here to share, but at the same time it's realizing that there is this connection on on eye level, on ground level, on height level above us, that it's all there. And if we can, like you said, realize that in moments where we're in our human body, but then to just step back and go, whoa, like I could observe this from me. Like, how crazy is it that as a human we can metaphorically step back and observe how we're reacting in a moment. Like, I think that in a person is just absolutely outstanding. Like, for animals and stuff that act instinctively and teach us intuition, we have that ability to do both. And I'm like, whoa, I wish everyone really knew that they had that superpower inside of them. That's not, it doesn't make them better or worse. It's just like, your superpower is within, it's there. If you could just take the chance to step into it. Hey.
And also there is intuition, and there is also a lot of observation, because for many people, that feel disconnected from intuition, it seems nowhere. And it happened to me actually when I was cutting from computer science, and I was doing the circus, like very technical, very muscular, very intense, and I wanted to connect again with my intuition, but I couldn't find it. I was like, where is it? What does it have to say to me? I doesn't hear anything. And it took me years to, and also travels. I had the opportunity of doing like mainly 2 travels in very different cultures. And I had to observe because I couldn't speak. And this is what I was raised in that habit, because I couldn't speak to my grandparents because they speak Hungarian and I doesn't. And I don't. So I learned how to speak without words in a way. So we spoke with eyes and some gesture, and you also realize that body needs very few things, like eat or drink or sleep or being happy. That's very simple. And so when I was doing these travels, I connect back to that way of observing that I learned when I was a child. And in a way, that didn't answer to my quest of intuition, but that connects me back to observation. And it took me years to understand how close that's it. Because I really hear lots of people looking for the intuition and looking for a connection that has no smell or no size or no shape, or they couldn't find it. But it's so simple. It's just like begin by observing people and trying to understand what they're paying attention at, and you will learn. You will do like them.
That is such a beautiful point, and a really, really important point too, because I know that a lot of people can see someone like you and just go, well, it must be easy for you to do that because you know what it looks like. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, actually, like you said, if it's hard to identify in yourself, maybe start observing someone else, or go out to your favorite park and look at the tree. And it might sound weird, but it's like, watch what people are doing, or that really makes you light up and go, wow, if I have the ability to see that in somebody else, then there's a part of me that can identify with that quality inside me. Because to identify something, we have to be able to know what that feels like within. So it's much easier to do when we're looking at someone else. Like you said with the tree, it's much easier to look at that and go, well, that's really pretty, that's really cool. And then eventually you get to that point where I guess the process initially can feel a little bit uncomfortable when you turn the mirror back on you and go, oh, like I don't like who I see. And I'm sure so many people have gone through that. But you'll get to the point where you start to love all of the, the crooked branches about yourself, and you just go, well, that just makes you you. And that's what, everyone else is loving you for. So you may as well love that about you as well, and turn it into your strength, as opposed to something that keeps dampening your soul or turning your soul gray, like you said before, because I've had that feeling too. And it makes me act ugly, not just feel ugly. But when I feel like that, it's just like, of course you're not going to be shining your best self when you're talking to yourself mean. You're not going to be feeding yourself nutritionally. You're not going to be keeping yourself around people or doing the things that you love. So yeah, Camille's really nailed it by saying, maybe look outside yourself initially to have that as a reflection directly back inside of you. If I'm wording that correctly, you can speak to that if you like. Yeah,
it's exactly this. And yeah, you summed it up like perfectly.
Yeah. I have been meaning to ask you there, girl. I see a piano in the background, and I'm wondering, is that something that you play?
Yeah, my Hungarian father is of East Europe tradition, in the family, like everybody plays music. Mm-hmm. So I used to play piano with my father. He did with his brother and father and grandmother, and like in Christmas parties, like everybody plays something.
Amazing.
But now, so I kept this. For a long time, I kept this like almost as a secret, or just playing for me. And more recently with the COVID, when the dance and the circus were took away from me, because that was terribly difficult to being cut from my practice, I went back to music. So I had a new piano, which is much more great, because I really needed this to be connected to some art, something, whatever. Yeah. So I picked music because it was there and it's easy to play along. So I picked the piano, and I also began to play the cello. And I have an accordion, which is really close to piano. So yes. This is fun because it's not as difficult as the cello.
Oh, how
which is a real challenge, but I love, because the cello is somehow connected to dance, because you have really precise movement and you have to feel the breath, and it's really nourishing. Each practice is really learning something. It's really teaching something for other practices. This is really passionate in doing many things.
Wow. What does a day in the life of Camille look like? Is it different every single day, or do you have like a consistent time that you wake up, a consistent time that you do a certain practice that grounds you? Tell us about that. I want to know you deeper.
I used to say there is no pattern at all.
Can relate to that.
A funny pattern is that when there is nothing, I put something to the point of, the thing is not flat. You have to be something. You have to do something, but at some point there is more to do than you expected.
Yeah.
So usually my life is like there is many waves, and at some point all the waves go up at the same time. Totally overwhelmed because there are too many things to do.
Yes.
This is my preferred pattern. And it really depends. Now in this season, twice a week I go to theater to create a theater project, which is about resilience, which is absolutely beautiful. My other theater project about grandmother is currently winter for that project. We are just writing grants. Demand. We are asking for grants, basically, to go back to the work. So I have computer work also. Yeah. That depends. Sometimes it's like 1 hour, sometimes 6 hours. It really depends. And there is sport. There has to be sport, otherwise I can't sleep. These particular days, it has been circus because I went back to work. So I've been working with a tree branch and roots project, 2 hours a day, and I was super tired because it was not usual for me anymore. But there will be usually when I have room and I not more to do, I get up and I go to work for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. This is my first practice because especially when I was cut from dance, I have to go back to work because this is really intimate practice for me. Yeah. Not because of, the work, like I believe everybody is somehow intimate with walking because we do that every day. Yeah. So when you are cut from everything, it's kind of easy to go back to this walking practice because it's already a friend. Yeah. So
I love that.
And there is music in the little holes. When I have 10 minutes, I could play on the accordions. When I have maybe if I have almost half an hour or 1 hour, this is the cello. And if I have 30 seconds, it's the piano.
That is amazing. You know what I think we will do is I'm going to wrap it up with just a takeaway resource that you would lead people in the direction to of like either a book you've read or a podcast you love or a song you love. But I will love to check in with you in a few months from now when you've completed those projects, and maybe we can have another episode around how they went for you and what kind of came up, if you'd be open to that.
I think I didn't understand that one.
I think I combined 2 questions in one. So I'll ask the first question and then I'll say the other bit again afterwards. I realize I probably talk too quick for your ears to comprehend at times what I'm saying. So I'll slow it down. What is a book or a podcast or a song that you think that just everybody should listen to, regardless of whether it's related to circus, just an awesome resource?
Just the last resource I was exposed to with a wonderful book of Ğabor Matë. I don't know if you know the guy.
Can you spell it for me? I'll write it down and include it in the notes.
Ğabor, J-A-B-O-R.
Yeah.
Matë, M-A-T-E.
Cool.
And this guy used to work with toxicomane, with drugged people in center of Vancouver, and there was, of course, a lot of native people here because they had been destroyed by our culture, so they turned to drugs, which is just a natural response of the body when you have trauma. And this is actually where I understood that. Thanks to his book, I understand all our addictive behaviors are just response to trauma, and it's just our ways to keep the balance in us between all the toute la souffrance or the suffering we have in you, and you need something to balance this. And so this book is particularly amazing because he also, the writer, has some dependent behavior too. He buys music in a way he can't control. And in our society, it's so normal to buy music in a way. You know, he's a doctor, he has many money, like it's so normal. And going through the book, he questioned that, and you really see the parallel between people that took heroin or cocaine and his behavior. There is the same little aggressiveness. If people prevent you from doing your thing, your mind is really fucked up. Like you couldn't see the reality as it is. You are making scenarios and you're really in your imagination. And he does every parallel. And also he's kind of workaholic. He can't stop working. And he's a Hungarian Jewish person. So he had to leave Hungary in a terrible context. And some of his family disappeared in the concentration during Shoah. And so this is his where the trauma begins for him. And he explains also with neuroscience what's happening in your brain and the dopaminergic system, how it's like just broken very early in your childhood, and what to do to make it maybe not work again, or work again in a way, but to dance with your trauma, not being moved by them.
Well, I think what that book would probably allude to is like, so dopamine, for a lot of people who might not know, is like, in this society, when everything is like a short response, we want quick results, we want the shortcut, we want the pill versus the long game. It's like impulsing our mind that we get results straight away, and if we don't produce that quick enough, we start seeking other ways to feel that happiness in our day. So it's like dopamine is our happy hormone. And when people use drugs or have addictive personalities in general, I'd be curious to know whether he also like alludes to how we normalize other or justify other areas of our life that we think is okay. It's like, oh, I just have a drink a night, or I just buy lots of music, or I just do this. And we think it's so normal, or we tell ourselves this story that, I don't have addiction, I don't have all of this. But if we're having an anger response, or we can't live without something, like that is addicted. And that's some people with coffee. Do you know what I mean? It's not just the hard drugs. It's like all of these other little things that play into our personality and our day. So yeah, that sounds really, really fascinating, girl.
Yeah, he makes it very clear in the book that the drug is not the substance, it's your relationship to that. And whether it can be whatever, it's not about a drug substance. So the name of drug, it shouldn't be a substance. It's really about the relationship. For example, you can, like, I want a drink. Yeah, no problem. Why? And when in this way, you can see that you have no choice but to get this drink. You have a problem. I mean, a problem. There may be some kind of dependence that could be addressed. And if you can just change your choice and do something else, then it's no problem. It's not this kind of dependence behavior.
Yes.
Makes it very clear.
Wow, I love that. I love the diversity of our conversation. It's kind of gone from what you do to the other side of things that you're interested in. And I love all that psychology side as well as, just people's behaviors, like what we're talking about. I think that probably sums you up and your message quite well, is that you're an observer of not only people, but you're just an observer of life. And I've certainly enjoyed our conversation, girl, of everything that you've shared. And what I was alluding to before is that I feel like we should do another episode in a few months, or when you've completed those projects that we're briefly talking about here, so I can check in and hold you accountable and just see how they went for you, and we can maybe talk about the projects that you've done in more detail versus bring that all in here. How does that sound?
Yeah, with pleasure.
Great.
I would like to have some feedback
Cool.
on this project, like if what I feel, like, do you feel it too?
Yeah, amazing. Let's do that. Where can people find your work and find what you do? I know I came across you on Facebook, lucky me that got in contact with you. But where can people actually do the same? I'll put this in the show notes, but I'll let you speak to the best spot for people to actually reach you.
I have a website where you can write to me really easily, but it's more like a portfolio. It doesn't show what's alive. It just show what has been done.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this Instagram account, which is kind of active, more or less, Camille Neiguse. And also there is Camille Circus, which is more about circus stuff, but it's really small. It doesn't grow fast.
Sure.
And I have Camille Neiguse, which means snowy Camille, which is actually my name because Havas means snowy in Hungarian, which is about the hiking and expedition photography. And I have also a Facebook page, but I don't know if it does represent my work, but yeah, maybe the Facebook page or the main Instagram account would be the best way.
Yeah. And if all else fails, if like, you know, your page doesn't show people much about who you are as a person, they'll have seen in this conversation whether they want to contact you and know more about you. And exactly like I reached out to Camille was just via a Facebook message, and that's when I felt her real passion come through. And that's when we started having conversations, which led to this call. So always take the chance to get to know someone at a different level. If one way isn't showing maybe what was shown through here, just reach out, send her a message, ask her about anything. She, you know, from the small time that I've known you, you seem very open to answering any part about your life and really what you're doing. So I really respect that, and I appreciate you jumping on here today. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and really, please don't hesitate to contact me if you have like similar passion or questionment or path, because I consider myself as a researcher, and I want to connect to people that have maybe more knowledge that I don't have.
Yeah, perfect. What time is it where you are at the moment?
Morning.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
7 something.
We're completely opposite ends of the spectrum. So we're 12 hours apart. I want to give you a big hug. I want to wish you the most beautiful day ahead, and whatever opportunities lie ahead in what you observe. You are a beautiful soul, and we shall connect in whenever the time is right to have you back on, and all the moments in between.
Yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you a lot for your listening and your interest, and thank you for sharing all of this. And have a nice day.
Have a beautiful day. Take care, beautiful soul, and best of wishes with all of your projects too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.